Sorry, guys. I wasn't able to get back in time. But we are good now, and I hope. There we go. I didn't get a chance to read any of your comments. I'm sorry.
No, 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 it's all good.
I didn't make it.
No, it's all good. But what's funny is I was still like trying to hold court
Yeah.
in like a really like kind of a, you know, awkward way. I was like trying to read the comments and then I was like, wait a minute, her thing is spinning. I wasn't sure exactly whether or not anybody could hear me anymore. So,
It's okay. Yeah,
but
I heard because I had my AirPods in and I heard you like looking at the comments and then
okay.
my AirPods turned off and I was like, I don't know how I did this, but yes. So we were talking about what are we talking about? Oh,
Well, let's just talk about a little bit more. Let's do this. Let's talk, unless you know what you wanted to talk about or
I
what we
wanted
were
this
talking
to
about.
be an open conversation about welcome home and about your work and just I feel like you and I always have like we could record our phone calls and make them podcast episodes.
I know, easily, every time.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I'm saying if you remembered what we were talking about before we got cut off, or
We were talking about, yes, I was telling you that recently one of my biggest fears
yeah,
being when people walk away, how I've noticed myself not fighting for someone, even if it's just in that setting, like in that meeting of wherever we are, that I sense that someone has checked out of a conversation or that they're speaking in a way that makes me feel like they're not really um, considerate of my emotions or the way that I'm
yeah,
feeling. Um, instead of because it's when you fall into negative self-talk, that's a habit. That's not something that it's not like you become aware and you're like, oh, I'm going to talk to myself negatively right now. You start hearing it,
right,
right? So in Welcome Home, I talk about how the moment you sense that, becoming aware of it will allow you to say, oh, I'm speaking to myself in a negative way. So in a setting like that, it would be, what did I expect? Everyone ends up leaving me somehow.
right.
Everyone ends not taking me seriously and so when you catch yourself talking to yourself like that, just affirm that the way that people treat me doesn't mean anything about me. The
Mm,
way that I treat people says a lot about me.
that's
And the
deep.
way that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's, yeah. So when I caught myself switching from that long-term habit that I had of immediately going into the negative, and now that I caught myself actually practicing positive self-talk and like conserving my energy as opposed to just letting it spill everywhere.
right.
I was like, Najwa, I'm so proud of you. Like, things are changing, you know?
Well, you even look different. Like, the years that I've known you now, you look more and more illuminated and
Aw, thank you.
brighter and brighter, and you look lighter and lighter. Like you look like you have less that you're carrying around,
Yeah.
which is really cool, and to
Yeah.
to put that then out through this book for people to be able to follow that path as well is really special. You were saying that you were getting these crazy messages from people. What's one message that really stood out that allowed you to then reflect back on that particular lesson in the book?
I actually shared this message earlier today on my Instagram feed, but this message I would say was one that absolutely, like, I was like, I had my hand on my heart the whole time. So I'll let you listen to it.
I don't even know how I'm going.
Give me one moment. Start it from the beginning.
Oh, she sent a voice message.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
that's
I
cool.
got permission from her to share it, but you could listen to it now.
That's
I
awesome.
don't even know how I'm going to get through this book. I'm on page 12, and I've never had someone explain that. It's that I've been missing. That I've been looking for. That. Oh, thank you so much for this. Thank you.
That message really, like, I listened to it and I was like, oh my God. So to give you context, so because you haven't read Welcome Home yet. So in Welcome Home, I talk about, and this was actually the chapter that I submitted as part of my proposal, my publisher, and it immediately, everyone just loved it so much. But it's the part of the book that I can't read without crying.
Wow, so you
read it a
cry
billion
every time you read it?
I cry every time I read it. And if you listen to my audiobook, when I get to that part, I tear up and you could tell that I'm tearing up. And I remember that the director at the time, as she was listening, I kept stopping and saying, I'm sorry. Like, I can't read this without getting emotional. And she said, put the emotion into it. Like, this is you. You're telling your story. So I talk about a moment where I was speaking to a therapist, and this was right after, you know, a very minor, insignificant heartbreak happened, but I sensed that my reaction to it was so overblown. I'm like, why am I being chained when literally nothing happened? It was just like a hopeful thing in my mind.
Yeah.
This person could feel about me a certain way, and there was no relationship. It was just, and I'm like, why am I reacting so negatively and hurting so much over nothing? And so I wanted to understand that. And it's not that I was hurting over the person, I was hurting over what his rejection told me about myself, which was the story of, I don't deserve to be held on to. So I was talking to a new therapist at the time who said to me, you know, something tells me that in your childhood, something happened that shaped that belief for you. And since then, because we talked so much, and she's like, every single story that you've told me about in your life has always ended up with that conclusion where you're telling yourself, see, you don't deserve to be held on to. Why would anyone hold on to you? And as she was saying that, the story hit me immediately. And it was when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I was at my aunt's house. And it was the night before Eid, which is a major Muslim celebration. It's like the night before Christmas.
Okay.
And my parents at the time, my mom was in Canada with my siblings, I believe, and my dad was in Lebanon, but I was staying at my aunt's for some reason. Like, it was always like, you know, you're better taken care of there, you have someone to feed you and all that stuff. And so I was sitting there and then playing with my cousins. And then my aunt, their mom, came to the room and said, come downstairs, we're having family time. And the invitation didn't include me. And I just remember sitting in that room and hearing them laugh and open gifts. And I thought to myself, why can't I have that? And that wasn't the gifts or the attention. It was the love. It was feeling like I was part of something, that I mattered to someone. And I carried that with me till now. Like till the day that I made that realization about building homes within other people and actually starting to put it in practice. I carried that with me without knowing that I carried that with me. But the impact it had on me to feel like I deserve to be excluded from a moment like that made me accept that for a long time. And as a child, you don't know how to tell yourself, you know, that's not true. It's not that you don't deserve to be part of that. It's you don't know how to say that to yourself. You don't know
Yeah,
how to
you don't have the ability to process it.
yeah. So that message where she said, it's that. That's what I've been looking for. It's like it hit me so much because I know the kind of power that realization had on me. You
Mm.
know? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
See,
really
I got
beautiful.
emotional.
No,
I can't talk about it without getting emotional.
it's beautiful. I mean, that's part of your charm. It's part of
Yeah.
your talent. It's part of your uh, authenticity to be able to actually um, be in the moment with us right now. You know,
Aw.
it'd be so much easier to kind of like say it in a way that was contained and controlled. But
Yeah.
that's not really going to do service to you or me or anybody that's listening. And
No.
so,
And it wouldn't be true and it wouldn't be real and it wouldn't be what I stand for. So,
right. And
yeah.
it wouldn't invite other people to actually move through it themselves. You know, there is a thing when you're a kid, if you can't process all that stuff that happens to you, you tend to either you recreate it, but you recreate it in different ways. You either recreate it from the standpoint of you become that thing. So,
Yeah.
you know, then you start excluding people, or
Hmm.
you find other people to continue to exclude you. And
Yes.
either way, it's a frequency thing and it's an unconscious record, as we talked about earlier, that's kind of playing in your mind over and over again. And so it sounds like that relationship at that time was just another way for you to recreate that unconsciously so that you could feel that way about yourself again because that's what you
Yeah.
thought home was.
That's familiar. Yeah. And one of the practical strategies that I talk about in Welcome Home is when you find yourself trying very hard to change and control a situation, ask yourself, am I actually trying to change it because I really want to change this situation? Or is it that I think that if I change this ending, then it proves to me that all of the other endings that confirmed the same thing, that confirmation is wrong. Like they're not true. Are you only focused on this situation or are you focused on changing a whole belief about yourself that other situations have led you to that same end? So yeah, once that became clear to me, I could at any moment where I would go through feeling like I was going towards like seeking that familiarity. And
Yeah.
this is gonna sound like sharing a bit too much, but
Oh, I
the other
think we're past that point.
I was talking to a friend of mine and I told her about just a moment of, I'm not gonna say a moment of weakness, but a moment of getting really emotional and kind of being reminded of that belief that I had about myself and how it affected me. And I told her that immediately after this happened, I called someone um, who I'll keep anonymous and I'll keep my relationship to them anonymous. And but that someone has historically let me down in many ways. And when I told this to my friend, she was like, "Did you notice that as soon as you kind of had a relapse into that belief about yourself, you went to someone else who's confirmed that belief to you
Of
before?"
course. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I actually did.
Yeah.
Like, and I sat with that for the whole day and just bringing that to my awareness again, how it's the habit of doing that for so long because it's so familiar that you can't expect yourself to grow out of it overnight, but you can expect that the moment you bring it to your awareness, you do something about it, you know?
Well, it's also that like those parts of you, you know, from your past that were frozen in time,
Hmm.
when you have something that's traumatic or difficult or challenging that you can't process, you tend to just stuff it down, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
as we're talking about, you unconsciously recreate it by finding things that match that story or, you know, feel familiar in your new
Mm-hmm.
life. But part of the reason that you do that is because those parts of you don't want to die.
Mm.
And since you're stuffing them down and you're not like acknowledging them, you're not actually like integrating them into your life, they don't feel like they have a space at the table because you're almost like embarrassed maybe of the things that have happened or how you acted or how you should have acted. So you
Yes.
go, I'm going to push you here and I'm going to do this and we're going to create this life. But those parts of you, they don't want to die either. Like any other life form, they want to be seen and they want
Yes.
to be recognized and they want to be acknowledged. So like if you actually acknowledge them and connect with them, then they don't have to recreate that same experience in order to be alive inside of you. And
Mm-hmm.
then once you have that integration, you wind up almost beating that level of the video game. You know,
Yes.
it's like what we were talking about earlier. You can't learn a lesson until you apply it to your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my poems. You can't learn a lesson until you apply it to your life. That's why you can understand a lesson and still have to learn it twice.
Yes.
Me, I've learned the same lesson more times than I would have liked.
Yeah.
But the experience was priceless, so I had to pay the price. And that's just, it's this idea of, okay, but once you actually learn the lesson and then you apply it to your life and you integrate those parts of you, you beat that level of the video game and then you never have to play it again unless you want to play it for fun.
Yes.
So then
So
you won't seek that familiar thing in order to keep that part of you alive because it's already alive.
yes. It's always going to be part of you. Like there's no tucking it away, like you said, and just because thinking back to certain moments, you feel embarrassed or you think, oh, you know what? I actually knew better, or how could someone do this to me? Like I don't deserve it. All of that comes from the ego, right?
Right.
And thinking that you could just completely be over it and never visit it again is just, it's so unrealistic. I love the part where you said about having to learn a lesson more than once to actually learn it. Or what was the word that you
Yeah,
used?
it's you can't learn a lesson until you apply it to your life.
Yes.
That's why you can understand a lesson and still have to learn it twice because you'll recreate the same lesson in a different disguise.
Yes.
You know, and it's only
Yes.
when you apply the lesson that you learned that you actually beat the level. So
Yes.
it's it's kind of interesting. Also, to your great point, all of those things that happen to you, it's not only that like you had to overcome them to be who you are. You are who you are because of those things.
Yes.
So you have to find a way to be grateful for those parts of you that you're shameful around or difficult experiences because
Mhm.
here we are, you know?
And I talked about this in Welcome Home as well, where I say, you know, being grateful for everything that happened doesn't mean that you deserved it. It doesn't mean that, you know, you give your power away to those who caused you pain by saying,
No,
thank you for putting me through that. That's not it at all. It's
right,
just understanding that you are who you are because you went through what you went through and because you rose on your own from that.
right,
The power and the credit goes to you, but you wouldn't have. I had a conversation once with a friend of mine where I was just, you know, you go through weak moments where you kind of you wish the pain away. You say, if only that didn't happen, I wouldn't be going through what I'm going through right now. And she said to me, you wouldn't be who you are if you didn't respond to that event specifically the way that you responded. Like just stop feeling bad for yourself. Like this has brought a side of you out that you didn't even know you had. And I always think back to that and just say, it's not that I'm like, you know, thank you for putting me through that. It's just you can't control what life throws your way. You can't control how people treat you. You can't control someone hurting you or someone intentionally doing something that they know hurts you. You can't control that. Everyone at some point goes through it. You have to take the courage that that situation led you to stand up for yourself and be grateful for that, and be grateful for your ability, your resilience, and your, it's not even, it's not, the courage is not even the right word. It's like that will to stand up against someone hurting you, or to stand up against someone trying to spill a certain identity on you that really isn't you, or a certain title, or a certain, you know, you're too sensitive, you're too this, you're a liar, you're this, you're that, a label, some kind of label. It's that will to say, I'm not going to submit to that because I know that's not true to me. And you might, yes, your voice might be louder than mine, but I have a voice, and I'm the one who gets to define who I am, not you. So it's the way that you rise out of it. And maybe you don't rise every single time. Maybe sometimes you do. And the reason I'm saying this is I have many people who message me who are going through a situation where they recognize the situation is not right for them, but they're having a hard time standing up for themselves. And so I always say, like, you didn't rise out of one situation. That doesn't mean that that has to apply to every single situation that you go through. Like, if you keep telling yourself, well, I didn't stand up for myself then, so why would I stand up for myself now? Or they don't know me as the person who speaks back, or as the person who asserts, you know, who she is, or who he is. Or it's about you in this moment deciding to change the narrative that actually reflects you, not that narrative that reflects how you've been, or what others expect of you, or what others might not accept of you. It's about you saying, this is me, and this is who I am, and this is what I stand for, and not continue down that path that you've been taking your whole life, just because you have been taking it your whole life, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like you and I could talk for hours and hours and hours.
Let me ask you one more question before I let you go, because I could talk to you forever as well.
Yeah.
What is your highest dream for this book, Welcome Home? What would you want it to do in the world, and how would you want it to impact the readers?
I want it to reach as many people in the world as needed, because every single time I get a message from someone, just like the message I just let you hear, I know the kind of power it has to change someone's life. And I want any person who needs specifically this kind of writing, this kind of, you know, holding your hand as you're healing, because there's quite a bit of self-love out there. But I think it takes the right book and the right way of talking and the right connection to actually make that change for you. So I want it to be in the hands of every person who is like me and who finds it so difficult to, you know, not be on everybody's good side, who finds it so difficult to just assert themselves and who they are. I want them to see the power that they have over just being their own home, and not continuing to even like rent a space in someone's life by begging them to stay for a short while, begging them to see them a certain way, or yeah, I want to see homes within all over the world, And so whatever is meant for welcome home will happen, and that gives me quite a bit of peace. I'm not attached to sales. I'm not attached to, I keep saying, I hope it reaches people who it needs to reach.
Beautiful. Well, first of all, I know that it will. And I just made that connection point now to the experience that you had when you were a kid and not feeling like you were welcomed to go downstairs and into that home, and that feeling of being excluded now all of these years later has created a situation where you've basically invented a community, and now you've invited so many people into your home, and you're also inspiring them to find their own, or at the very least redo the foundation or expand another wing of the house or something like that. So I think that everything happens for a reason, and I'm really grateful to you as an artist and as a friend for showing up in the world, and I'm excited to see this book fly as far as it possibly can go.
Thank you. That's very sweet and kind of you. And I'm happy that we talked for as long as we did, because it always feels like 2 minutes.
I know it does.
Yeah, and one thing that we didn't mention is recently you and I did an interview for your
Yes.
podcast. So if you want to let everybody know about it and where they can listen to it, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I have, the book is called Inquire Within, but my podcast is called Inquire Within as well. So it's really easy. And you can find Inquire Within on Spotify or Apple, or you can go to my page right now and there's a direct link on the Linktree thing. But Najwa and I had an amazing conversation. It was like an hour and a half. And this was really awesome. But when we talked, we really went through your whole life, which was so cool to see the through line of how you've become who you've become, and even just sitting down to start writing this book. So I think if you enjoyed this conversation, you'll really enjoy that conversation as well.
Yes, I believe they will enjoy it. And it was probably one of my best podcast interviews that I've had, where I just felt like I was just having a soul conversation. And it was one of those conversations where it was depleting in a great kind of way. Like, the relief that you get when you feel that someone genuinely understands you. So whoever's watching this, I hope you guys can listen to it. And I will connect with you right after this. I'll send you a message. But is there anything that you want to leave us with?
No, just go out and get Welcome Home.
Yeah.
And then we can all read it together. And yes, I encourage everybody to do that. And Najwa, I love you, and continue to shine. We're really proud of you.
Right back at you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye. I can't read everybody's comments, but I will read your comments afterwards. Sending you all so much love.